Hello, this is the Lord's Legion and welcome to the best villains ever, the show in which I talk about a specific villain and talk about their backstories, abilities, greatest feats, and why I love them so much. Now I am incredibly excited to do this one because I believe that this episode will be by far the most refreshing out of all of the episodes thus far. Because not only have I never made a single episode in relation to a TV villain, but surprisingly enough I have never done a single episode in relation to a Doctor Who villain before. And so what better way to start by introducing to you guys the Doctor's most despised and relentless villains of all time, known as the Daleks. So without further ado, let's begin with their backstory. And yeah, the origin for the Daleks are pretty convoluted, which is why I'm going to do my very best in trying to narrow it down in the most basic way imaginable. Now the Daleks originated from a planet known as Skaro, and as you could imagine, the planet itself is incredibly radioactive. And the reason why this planet is so radioactive is due to the fact that this is a war-torn planet in which was ravaged between the Thals and the Khalids. And this war was so great in fact that it lasted around over 1,000 years. Now all you really need to know about the two species are the fact that the Thals are the more peaceful out of the two and they just want to get rid of all threats. And on the other side you have the Khalids, who are pretty much power-hungry dictators. And the reason why I bring up the Thals and the Khalids is because they are the Daleks' earliest recorded ancestors. Now at this time, the government and military were exclusively run by the head of the Khalid Science Division, who we would all know as Davros. And he had this certain yet twisted idea in which could help the Khalid survive. And Davros' plan was of course to create the Daleks, which initially they were presented as a new means for transportation so that the Khalid people can survive the environments of Skaro. However, Davros' true intentions with the Daleks were much sinister than what was originally thought. Because in reality, Davros wanted to mutate all of the Khalids and transform them into an army of Daleks so that they can conquer everything. And in order to perfect a Dalek, Davros had to cleanse all of the Daleks from emotion, with the exception of anger and hatred. And because of that said anger and hatred, the Daleks believe themselves to be the superior beings across the universe and that they want to exterminate all that isn't a Dalek. Long story short, the Daleks went rogue and exterminated the Thals, the Khalid, and pretty much anything else that could stand in their way. And once they were done with Skaro, the Daleks left the planet so that they can continue on their conquest. Now when you really look back on the Daleks' origin story, it is pretty disturbing. Because already the Khalid race were pretty much disturbing and despicable enough as they were, but then only for one Khalid scientist in the name of Davros to exploit that and turn them into something even worse, it's all the more terrifying to me. Especially since all that the Daleks can feel are anger and hatred, which in a way makes the Daleks all the more threatening. And as disturbing as their origin seems, it's really hard to feel sympathy for them. Mostly because they were pretty much evil before they even became Daleks. Now in order to know what makes a Dalek, it's best we begin by looking at the different Dalek parts. Now to begin with the top of the Dalek, which is where A is, we have the luminosity discharges, in which do light up whenever the Dalek speaks. And then moving on to B, we have the eye stalk, which are the weakest part within a Dalek. Because so long as you can blind the eye stalk, the Daleks are pretty much rendered useless. And then going down to C, we have the sucker arm, in which is actually known as the manipulator arm. And despite how the manipulator arms look like plungers, they are incredibly lethal, as they can easily drain other life forms' brains so that they can gather their victims' information, or could even create a vacuum strong enough to crush a human skull. And then going back to the anatomy, we have D, which are the solar panels that are hidden behind the Dalek's back, in which are used to collect power and convert it into electricity, so that way the Dalek can move freely. And then moving on to E, we have the most powerful weapon within the Dalek's arsenal. And their main form of weaponry are of course the gunsticks, in which could easily exterminate any life form. And if a Dalek would ever want to use more firepower, it could easily destroy an entire house if it wanted to. And then moving on, we have F, in which reveals the main chamber. And this is where a Dalek can open itself to reveal its true mutated form. as to which traditionally the Dalek mutant looks more like a disgusting tentacle creature with an exposed eyeball and its very own brain popping out. And so moving on quickly, we have G, which are the globes, which are the orbs that are surrounded by the lower part of the Dalek, in which contain high explosive charges for either offensive action or self-destruction, or hell, it can even generate some force fields around it. And then going on to H, we have the actual metal around the Dalek, which is actually known as Dalekanium. And finally we have I, which is the main motive power system for the Dalek to move. Now when it comes down to the Daleks, they come in all different shapes and sizes. And so I'm only going to be naming a handful of them, because if I was to name all of them, then we would be here all day. But to begin with, we have the first version of the Daleks, which originated in Skaro. And then we also have the Imperial Guards, which are known as the more highly advanced Daleks, and are often the enforcers for the Emperor Dalek. And then we also have the Renegade Daleks, to which similarly to the Imperial Guards, they are more advanced. And then we also have the Special Weapons Dalek, which contains only one devastating weapon, in which is a giant gunstick cannon, which is so powerful it could pretty much obliterate anything in its path. And speaking of the Emperor Dalek, we have plenty of those as well, to which the Emperor Daleks are often seen as the most important Daleks of them all. And like I already mentioned, there have been multiple Emperor Daleks throughout the years of Doctor Who. And then we also have the Great Time War Daleks, in which are more defined and more modernised. And as far as drones are concerned, these Daleks are more devastating in comparison to the original Daleks. And then we also have the more independent Daleks, known as the Cult of Skaro, consisting of Dalek Sec, Cast, Faye and Khan. And speaking of Dalek Sect, the Daleks are also capable of merging themselves with other beings and creating hybrids. Like how Dalek Sect was capable of merging with another human being and becoming a human Dalek. And my personal favourite, we also have the Supreme Dalek, in which next to the Emperor Dalek, the Supreme Dalek are the second in command. And lastly we have the Paradigm Daleks, in which I'm not really keen on. Now it's no secret that the Daleks have achieved plenty of incredible feats over the years, and so to narrow it down, I'm only going to be focusing on the Great Time War Daleks, because they are the Daleks that I'm most familiar with. And again, I'm only going to be giving you guys a handful just so that you can understand how devastating the Daleks really are. For starters, the Daleks themselves are space capable and vacuum proof, meaning that they can easily travel in space. Plus they can easily magnetically lock themselves onto other surfaces, so that they can maneuver with relative ease. Now this may be just exclusive to the Cult of Skaro, but they do possess an ability known as emergency temporal shift, in which they can easily teleport themselves to pretty much anywhere in time. And apparently the Cult of Skaro themselves were capable of blowing up an entire sun. Not to mention that at full power, a Dalek can blast a human being to atoms within a split second. And they can also kill a Cyberman just as easily as how they can kill humans. And the Daleks themselves are that durable that they can easily survive firepower from the Cybermen, as well as 21st century gunfire, and the Doctor does claim that a Dalek can easily survive a nuclear explosion, as well as bioweapons and radiation. And what's also really interesting about the Daleks is that in some cases they can communicate with other beings through telepathy. And much like Time Lords themselves, the Daleks can under certain conditions be transformed into precognitive entities, meaning that in some way, shape or form the Daleks can see into the future. However, what's really terrifying about the Daleks in general are the fact that in a sense the Daleks are pretty much cockroaches. Because no matter how many times you beat the Daleks and thinking you wiped them out completely, they will always find a way to come back. And each time they come back, they become more powerful and more cunning. And the worst part about it is the fact that you cannot reason with the Daleks at all, because they are just so blindsided with hatred. And in the end, they were just programmed this way, because the less emotion they feel, the more cold and sinister the Daleks become. And sure, one could underestimate a Dalek, but in reality they are far more dangerous than anyone could ever imagine. So because of their very disturbing origin story, as well as just how they're fueled by anger alone, not to mention how devastating the entire race is, and above all else just being iconic and dangerous villains, this is why I personally believe that the Daleks are one of the best villains of all time. So are you a huge fan of the Daleks, and what are some of your favourite Dalek stories? Comment below and share some thoughts. And as always, thank you guys for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Take care and have a good one.